22. The Gerry Ryan Show, Monday to Friday, 9 till 12 on 2FM.
There are certain questions that continue to vex and perplex many of us. For example, just when do you place your napkin on your lap in a restaurant? How do you eat peas in public? Doesn't matter. And should you cut bread at a dinner table or break it? And indeed, does that matter? The man sitting in front of me has the answers to these questions and many more besides. Sean Davern first learned about manners on a County Limerick farm, refined them by training as a butler. That's right, a butler. He buttles. Over his career, he has served royalty, trained the butlers of Buckingham Palace and catered to the many whims and foibles of the rich and famous at London's Lanesborough Hotel. Over the years, Sean has become an acknowledged expert on etiquette, even writing a book for families, and he's currently home here in Ireland giving a masterclass in manners to guests of the Private Ireland collection of country and town houses. I quote, "If you resented doing things for people, you wouldn't last very long on my job. I don't like the word servant because it makes people think I am subservient. I am certainly not. What I do is manage people's lives." Good morning and welcome. Good to have you with us.
Good morning, Gerry. Thank you for having me.
Now, first of all, I think it's important to point out that the masterclass that you were giving in manners to the guests of the Private Ireland collection of country and town houses, this was not an entertainment, though I'm sure it was entertaining. This was a class.
Yeah, it's always very important that you put this across, and because when you mention manners to people, people think it's prim and proper. Manners, as I said, are respecting the people around you. And, you know, I try to put it across in a light-hearted, jovial way, which I think is important for people to get their attention. Because sometimes people think manners are a joke. They are extremely important. Because we're an image-conscious world as well, by the way. You'll always remember a rude person, you know, and you wouldn't want to be remembered for that.
No, and manners maketh the man, of course, these days. Manners maketh the man and the woman. Manners maketh mankind. In fact, you are defined by your ability to deliver a mannerly response. And sometimes you're defined by your ability to deliver a mannerly response in challenging circumstances. Losing your sense of humour is extremely bad manners, for instance. You, originally from Limerick, you are now head butler at the renowned Lanesborough Hotel. So you have had experience of etiquette, manners and how to deal with people at lots of different levels in society, haven't you?
I'm very lucky that I have. And, you know, it's part of like educating yourself along the way as well. You know, the things that have happened to me, I've had certain things thrown at me, you know, but you learn to deal with these things. But I have a knack now, you know, I'm 50 years of age, so I've learned lots of techniques that I can cope with people who are badly behaved or who misbehave, or gently guide them along a way. But that doesn't happen easy, you know, and you don't want to offend people because that is not my role in my business. I must make sure that everyone feels welcomed, feels treasured and wanted in my property, which is extremely important because they pay a lot of money for it. And it's not because of the money issue. I think any property needs to welcome their people in well. And I suppose the hardest thing I suppose I had to do for somebody is removing somebody who's misbehaved at a dinner party.
Dear, oh dear, let's start there because I think we've all had some experience of that. This is the person who starts the evening with maybe 5 martinis instead of 1, and who is far too highly opinionated about everything, but particularly the guests. And you just know, if you've any radar, that by the time they've sat down, you know what's going to hit the fan, and it's going to be messy unless somebody intervenes. Tell us what happened.
Well, I have to tell you, I have a few knacks for people like that. If I see somebody, what the word knocking them back, so to speak, I very quietly water their drinks down for a start. It's always a help. And pouring the wine at the table, you make sure you only pour less into the glass. If they got to the stage that they were, I usually have a technique of saying, there's a telephone call for them, removing them from the situation and dealing with that situation outside.
And what would you say to somebody who'd become boisterous and abusive?
I would have to say they're showing them. I would very politely. I'm a bit of a diplomat and it's very important to not to offend people, as I said from the start, but gently explaining they are causing a scene. They're causing an embarrassment to themselves, and I'm embarrassed for you. Yeah. And that's why you get it. And usually people respond.
And I don't want this to get any worse for you.
Yes. And people generally take on board and they leave.
Who are the worst, men or women?
I have to say it is men. But in saying that, society's changed again. Women, it's become a woman's world, as I call it. And women are just as bad now.
And they have their own particular way of.
Yeah, but women are far more image conscious, which is great for a start. They wouldn't like to let themselves down.
So that'll hold them back a wee bit.
A
anyway.
wee bit, yes.
Yeah, but not that much, I have to tell you. Now, let us talk. We spoke about, just while the U2 track was playing, the welcome is such an important thing. And really, there are people who've been welcomed into bedsits by a good landlady and felt as comfortable and as treasured as if they'd been brought into a 5-star penthouse suite. And so that welcome and following through with that welcome is ultra important, isn't it?
I think it's extremely important. And it's even welcoming someone to your own home. If you don't open that door and give a warm welcome to someone, they won't feel wanted. And that's even in your own personal home. And can you imagine if you're paying for going to a place and you don't feel treasured or wanted? Because most people go to hotels now to be pampered and to be looked after and to have a very high standard of service, which I think they deserve if they come in, whatever the property. And you're quite right. It doesn't matter if it's a guest house but that welcome is very important and your surroundings are kept well. It follows through. And the problem is you make a decision about a place in a couple of seconds. And it's like meeting somebody. When you meet somebody first, you'll judge quite well, am I going to like this person or not? And you've only got a couple of minutes to make up their mind for them. So you have to be on top of it if you're the proprietor of a property.
Absolutely. And of course, the property that you refer to, the Lanesborough Hotel, this is a legendary hotel, an old hotel as well. It's been around for a while. And your journey, of course, to the Lanesborough has been quite a star-studded one. I mean, where did it all start? When did you realise that you had this tendency for good behaviour, as my grandmother called it?
You know, can I explain? It all happened by accident. And of course, in my type of job, you have to educate yourself on etiquette and manners and formalities and all those things, because you have for your progression. And I was lucky I was able to, the establishments I worked with did give me good training and education along the way to coming to where I am. From the book point of view, and I'll explain, I love children. I think children should come into hotels and children should be seen, and we shouldn't treat our children as objects.
To be hidden away.
No, they should be spoken to like little people, and you'll get a response from them. But it just happened that there was a family staying with us, and they had gone to the restaurant and they invited their London friends in for lunch. Well, the children caused havoc, and in English hotels, they don't really like children in the restaurant.
Well, they're the polar opposite to Italian hotels.
Yes, and it irritates me intensely, so I'm striving to change it. But I took them away. They were, as it's throwing around, the parents were getting more irate, and of course, that irateness was put onto the children, and they were having a great time. They thought it was great fun. All I did was take them away and explaining how you sit down, what the table was for, what a soup spoon was, just as an entertainment. I didn't realise it was a journalist who wrote in the Financial Times about a week or two later, a little column. I was inundated with phone calls. And the American family that went back, said, Sean's great, he'll entertain the children for you, and he does this, that and the other. And it was kind of grew from there. I had at one time, and I think this is outrageous, having a waiting list to come to an etiquette class for children. Because I firmly don't believe it is my responsibility to train children, you know. And hence, that's where the book came. And the book was meant to be targeted at parents to sit with their children and have it was meant to be fun as they went along the stages of it. And that's how it grew.
And it came from that book. And do you believe, though, that we know manners anymore?
I think, if I give you an example, the first etiquette book that has been recorded was in 1526. And, you know, the same principles that are kind of there. We've moved them on because life has moved on. I think there is a lot of people with good manners still. You do get that odd few. I think we've lost the art of good manners. You know, like our grandparents instilled in us, and probably our parents, my age group anyway. The younger ones, because the parents now, when they're late 50s and 60s, didn't know how to teach manners to their children, and it was kind of anything went. You could behave how you liked, and that's not the case. We all have to conform. And as I said before, it is respecting the people around you. That's purely what good manners is all about.
You've worked not only in hotels and, as I said, we'll come to the Lanesborough as well with all its Gerrys, because it is quite an exotic peacock of a thing. But you've worked with families as well, haven't you?
I went into private service. I originally did a hospitality diploma, and then I went into hotels, and then I wanted to specialise, and I went to a butlering school, which was for 5 weeks. Which isn't.
And did you learn anything at that? Did you?
Not really. And if I tell you, those courses run at £5,000 to £7,000 now for 5 weeks. But that's not here. I'm against that, and that's why we train better now. But and then I decided I was going to go into private service. Now, private service is very different from your hotel life because you're on call 24 hours a day. There's a much higher expectation, and you have to run somebody's life for them. And I worked with 3 different types of families. My first one was a European royal family, and then my second one was a Middle Eastern client, which was very difficult. I wanted to learn about cultures, which is very important because we've become a global world now as well. And I worked for a professional people who made their own money and had a young family. But hence why I went back to the type of establishment, because I got married and I had children of my own. And so I couldn't combine both.
Now, when you were working for the families, because obviously you come from a tradition that's born out of Western culture, that's born out of a Commonwealth experience, that's born out of empire, really, in a way, that we're not unfamiliar with in these islands, and it's spread itself, its tentacles across the world. It's left its mark in some places and not in others. Indelibly so in North America, I believe, and in some parts maybe of Africa, and then as we go further east, less and less and less. Now, what would you do with, for instance, a Middle Eastern family who would have, if not totally opposite ways of doing, because they can be excessively polite sometimes, but they're quite different to you. How do you run their lives?
It was difficult because, you only dealt with males. And they controlled everything in a house. Their patterns of, they got up very late in the afternoon, like 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock, would stay up till 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning, because that was their cultural thing. That's what I found difficult. Their eating patterns were very different as well, because they used a lot of their fingers. They used to have whole sheep's eyes. They were all very delicacies and that was very new to me.
And fantastic, how fabulous. But I mean, quite difficult. I mean, would you wear the same outfit? By the way, he's immaculately attired in a morning suit at the moment. Would you be wearing that as you brought in the sheep and the sheep's eyes?
I did. I've always worn this uniform.
And how would you announce that the sheep eyes was ready?
I have to say dinner is ready. That's an experience. And for me, it was a great experience. Not one of my finest, I would have to say.
Did you get them to change their ways in any way?
No.
You didn't bother at that?
No, because these were extremely wealthy Middle Eastern clients.
And committed to their culture.
Yes, and a little bit spoilt. In their behaviour ways.
And were you asked to do anything very mad by them?
No. I wouldn't do it anyway, I have to tell you. There's limits to what I do in my life, and I won't do anything that's I feel uncomfortable with.
Or designed to humiliate.
Or legal. They have to respect me for my position as well, and most people do. It's very rarely that ever happens. But in their culture, it was difficult, but it was interesting. And I was lucky because I went to London in the 70s, and where there was a big Middle Eastern influence.
And boys, weren't you qualified?
And that was a help.
Yeah.
But of course, now it's so different. They've become so well educated. They've all been educated abroad, and their children are different again, which I'm still in contact with the children, which is really quite nice. Yeah, with all the clients I looked up.
Did you become a shoulder to cry on? Were you asked for advice in areas that maybe somewhat outside the Butling School?
Of course, if you're asked a question, you give your opinion. But I'm no Paul Burrell, by the way, and I'm somebody's rock. But there's a limit to what I do. It's a job that I do, and I wouldn't. That's where he didn't do very well in keeping it his job.
Did he cross the line? Did he? We had him here in this very studio.
He's a disgrace
Do you
to my
think so?
profession. Because if I work for you, Gerry, and, you know, I work in your household, I can see a lot, I hear a lot, I could never repeat it. You'd have to kill me. Because it's not under, you know, it's a unwritten contract as far as I'm concerned. Because you employ me, you pay me. Why would I talk about you afterwards if I leave your employment?
Well, I suppose
Would you
the
want me to?
dreadful fact of life is that somebody's going to pay you more than I paid you. Now, Paul would consider himself to be of the highest moral standing because that's his personality. Is he a pariah now in your business, in your
I'm
your
in my
fraternity?
profession, yes, because he's crossed that line. And now he's selling his wares, pouring cups of tea for £17 a head or whatever it is in the States. Good on him. I'm very happy for someone. But, you know, he did because the people he was working for could never respond back.
No.
Because if it was you, Joe, you could come back and say to him, I'll be after that man. But they can't do that.
Yeah, well, particularly if you're dead, you certainly can't respond. You're sort of at the ultimate disadvantage. In studio this morning, we have a man with manners, Sean Davern. First learned his manners on a County Limerick farm. Did you?
Yes, my dad's a great man, so he's still with me, thank God. And I don't want to upset him, thank God. Yes, but he instilled that we had to sit at the table. We had to make sure we put our knife and fork in the 6 o'clock position when we finished our meal.
Can we just establish that if nothing else comes out of this exchange, other than this fact, and I say this to friends, colleagues, family, anybody willing to listen, please back me up, Paul, that when you are finished your meal, it is not appropriate to make the Crusaders' cross sign or put the knife and fork under the table or in your pocket or anywhere other than the 6 o'clock position on the plate. Correct?
Quite correct. And you know, because
there's a reason for that, by the way.
Yeah, it tells everyone you're finished.
Yeah.
And if you weren't finished, you just leave them to the side. And it tells everybody around that you haven't finished, and they won't start bringing on the next course before you've even finished what you're eating.
Now, actually, now that I've mentioned that, have you come across people who want to resist, the rebels, who want to resist any of the etiquette that you have that you're so gallantly trying to remind them of?
People will always test you, of course, but I have to say, people do not want to be remembered as being bad mannered and didn't know what to do. We all, and I don't care what anyone says, I certainly would. You probably wouldn't remember somebody with good manners, but you certainly would remember somebody with bad manners, which is far worse. I don't think so. I have had people where you may have to encourage them using finger bowls for drinking out of. But, you know...
I've seen that.
It's just... and that's part of it.
Are there some things that are out of date now? For instance, we've argued about this one on the programme before. The sommelier arrives at the table and by instinct, and maybe not by charm, asks the gentleman to taste the wine, even though maybe the woman's paying for it. How do you feel about that?
Oh, never. You'll always... Because there's always a boss on a table.
Yeah.
And whether it's a man or woman, I have no problem now presenting a bill or offering wine to her. If she's hosting that table, because she could be a very powerful lady, by the way,
yeah,
she is in control. You know who's in control and you know who's giving you the orders, especially in a restaurant. I would never do that. I would always actually give it to the person who's ordered it from.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly the way to deal with it. Now, the Lanesborough Hotel. Describe this hotel to our listeners.
Well,
and those unfortunates, including myself, have yet to stay there. I've been in it, but I have not stayed.
It's a very unique hotel. It's a Grade 1 listed building, right in High Park Corner, overlooking High Park. We are one of the most expensive hotels in London, and we have a suite that costs £7,000 a night down. You have your full butler service when you arrive, and you have your personalised butler to look after you during your stay. That makes us very unique. We have, I suppose, we're one of the youngest ones. We're only open for 18 years, but we have made such a mark on the market for service detail. And if I tell you, we have 4 staff per guest, which is one of the highest in London, staff ratio.
Wow.
And, you know, there was a time when that was a norm. But sadly, finances and it's expensive. But when you come to us, we feel we're giving you value for money. And we get very little complaints about what our rates are, but they feel they've been looked after and treated with the respect that they deserve.
Now, when somebody checks in to, what do you call the suite, by the way?
It's the Royal Suite.
The Royal Suite. When you come into the Royal Suite and the butling staff come with it, and there's a whole host of other people as well that will come with the deal, who's their first point of contact? Because you've got to figure out what kind of guest and what their special requirements will be, and also how seriously they're going to take the arrangement and the relationship.
Well, if I give you an example, we send a profile to all our guests. Their butler might respond back to what they like, what time they like their morning tea, or whether they like wild goat's milk. It could be anything, and we would arrange, or they have particular flower arrangements, or they might like their bed turned down a special way. They're things that we look at very carefully. In saying those things happen, but when you come to us, you know, you could leave your suite, you come back, all your clothes are pressed, your shoes are polished, especially ladies' shoes. They never polish their shoes. We men think of our shoes better. And making sure your wardrobe was tidy, that's service to me. Without asking for it.
And you can do that. Actually, it's quite interesting. There are certain things that you can do without being asked to do that aren't interfering with the person.
No. I mean, of course, you leave. If I tell you if they left their jewellery there, that's exactly where they'll find it when they come back. Nobody's allowed into your suite without your butler knowing. So he has full control who goes in and out. If you're there, everybody will be announced. You won't have any stragglers coming up to your room, banging on your door without the butler knowing. And
you hide out then until you're called when the guests are there?
They have a little button that they push, and I have got 3 minutes to get to that room. So that's our response time, and I mean 3 minutes, because it's like flashing lights if I don't get there within 3 minutes.
It's Sean Davrin in studio this morning, a Limerick man who's been through, I suppose, many of the finest homes and now resides as chief butler in one of the finest hotels in London, the Lanesborough. Well, of course, everybody loves to hear about mad guests and mad clients. All guests are mad, basically, at the end of the day. If you start working from that premises, you'll never be disappointed. And every request is treated as reasonable, no matter how bonkers it might seem to the outside world. Isn't that right, Sean?
That's part of you creating a home environment for somebody when they come to you. And I'll give you a typical example of that. We have one particular gentleman who brings out a measuring tape, and it's called an English turn down, where you turn the bedspread halfway back. Well, if you haven't got the correct measurement, he'll be very upset. It ruins his day. So you might think that's very odd, but for us, that's making sure somebody is comfortable and has what they want. It probably suits him. That's what he does at home, and that's the way he wants it when he goes away.
Well, now I'm partially, I believe, though it's I think under control, partially obsessive compulsive, and so I like the bed turned down perfectly. I would also I wouldn't be adverse to having my ties arranged, my shirts arranged, and having everything arranged symmetrically and very neatly. Now, no matter how obsessive that may seem, you don't have a problem with that at all.
Not at all. That's part of my job. That's what's expected from me. And if you liked to wear pink socks, so to speak, and I might think that's not right, well, I would allow you. That's your choice.
Would you ever, for instance, if despite my obsession, I'd gotten to the point where I was looking like Krusty the Clown and I was heading down to the dining room, would you say, Mr. Ryan, can I just have a word with you?
Yes, you have to go very diplomatic when you make a statement. If I didn't think you looked, because I'd be worried about your image for a start, and that's my responsibility, worrying about your image and making sure that you look perfect. If your shirt was crumbled or anything, well, it wouldn't be, because I'd have a darn first impressed. It wouldn't happen. But if I thought you were wearing the colours didn't match, or you the wrong handkerchief, yes, I'd make suggestions. That's your decision in the end to say whether you're going to go with it or not.
And if you make those suggestions, maybe sir might consider a pink shirt. And I think I have just the tie for that with that particular suit. And maybe the U2 headband is not a good idea with the outfit. Do they usually take your advice?
They generally do. because people, because that's my job. And I have probably built up a trust with certain people. I wouldn't do that to somebody I didn't know. Now it's something that you build up a little rapport with people and you kind of guide them. Generally, people take it on board and they act upon what I say generally.
Now, rock and roll, they say, can stop the traffic. It can wreck the room as well. What do you do with somebody, and I know you have some experience of this, who has maybe a request that may architecturally or even from an engineering point pose a threat to the physical integrity of the building?
Well, if it means that you wanted, Gerry, when you came to me, you wanted your bed in a position, a different position, then I would do my utmost to put it in that position. Yeah. Of course, I would never say no to you, Gerry, whatever you ask me to do.
Say I wanted to play golf in my suite.
I wouldn't be encouraging it, and I would have to say it's quite dangerous.
But I have to play golf. I'll have a nervous breakdown.
Well, I can tell you, we have a very nice corridor that I can take you to, and you can play golf in.
Right, excellent.
You kind of come up with a solution.
Yeah.
You don't come back and say, no, you can't do something.
I'm sold on that. And I want one of those little machines that sends the ball back to me. Can you get me that?
I will, of course, get it for you. Yeah. That's part of my role. If you wanted a particular, as I give you an example, I said we had one person who wanted wild goat's milk. Now, in the middle of London, it isn't. You can get goat's milk quite easily.
But wild goat's milk.
Wild goat's milk.
I think we need to go off to Santorini
well, we actually went to Wales.
To get that. Oh,
we went to Wales. Yeah. I sent a chauffeur down with a car that took an 8-hour journey to get a pint of goat's milk. Now, it sounds ludicrous, but that's the length we will go for our clients. And they are paying for it. But I keep stressing, and it's vulgar when you talk about money, but people feel that's what they're used to. And that's the length we will go. Or if, giving you an example, if you don't like, you want particular products in your bathroom, then I will go out, buy those products, put them in your bathroom and not charge you for them.
Well, now, something that I think is very sadly missing from a lot of hotels now, and it was a very important moment after the crash when Lord Sebastian Flight and Charles Ryder had gotten drunk in the old 100 club and crashed the car, and Rex Mottram the following day reckoned that the barbers needed to be called in to get the gentleman ready for court, and you realise how important the barbers were. They were men of almost mystical powers. Can you call in the barber?
Yes, of course.
You see, this is missing now. People,
like everything in my business, you build up rapport with all, because I'm a luxury market, and I have contacts with all these people. If I said you needed a haircut, I would be suggesting, should I make an appointment for you? I wouldn't tell you. I'd be suggesting that you need to have your hair done, because some people depend on me to tell them those things because they have lots of other things in their mind. They're not worried about things like that. Or if it was a particular clothing shop that I want you wanted to go and buy something, I would be suggesting to you, whether that be ladies or men. There's particular, especially ladies are quite peculiar about hairdressers, so you have to kind of match the hairdresser with the person you're looking after and what their locks look like, and making sure that you send them to the people who can deal with those locks. Now,
of course, the compromising requests, and this doesn't, and every concierge has been asked this, it's not just being able to deal diplomatically with a request for a beautiful woman who will give pleasure for money, but there are also even sometimes more compromising requests made by maybe somebody who's in the room a day or two before their spouse and is visited by an inappropriate visitor, and you're asked to keep quiet when the wife or the husband even nowadays turns up. How do you deal with something as compromising?
I actually keep my mouth shut, and I'll give you an example. I never call anybody by Mrs. So-and-so or whatever it might be.
It's whoever.
Whoever. And I learned that the hard way.
How did you learn it that hard?
Because there was a lady who stayed with me many, many years ago, and she says, I'm not Mrs. So she was quite forward in saying she wasn't. So after that I said, I'm always going to play it carefully. And whoever visits, they're only visitors. I'm not interested in what they do and that part
None
of
your business.
Which wouldn't happen in the Lanesborough, of course.
Of course. God forbid. It would be a mistake if it did. And not a mistake that should be inquired into under any circumstances. Let me go back to these etiquette classes that you held for the children, because I think that's a pretty good idea. And I would imagine that your powers of persuasion are both entertaining and convincing. And really, that's what it's about with children. You know, they have to be captivated by the thing. Were they good learners?
They were, actually, because first of all, sometimes they were pushed by their parents, which isn't always the ideal thing. But what I did try and do with that, and you're quite right, it has to be humorous. You have to bring a certain flair to captivate their interest as well. And so you have to do quirky little things to get their interest, like eating peas was a bit of fun, you know, and they trying it. Because and that's what I think is really important, is only by example do our children learn. And you know something, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes months, years probably to get them. But it does stick there. And with the classes, they were about 2.5 hours. And what we did with a structure about, you know, children have great social lives, as in birthday parties. If you have children, Gerry, they have a great circle, probably better than our own sometimes. And there's that in, you know, answering invitations, knowing what to do, replying and thanking people for a party. You know, it does mean a great deal to somebody if you teach your children. They have to write a little note back. Oh, now you can email, now you can text. I'm not in favour of them, but I don't disagree with them, I have to say. I think a handwritten note is much nicer, much more personal. But hey, I just think as long as you respond to the person, that it is important. The classes, and went from that, and it went to onto table, why a soup spoon is shaped it is, where it's placed on the table. Because there's a reason for every piece of cutlery on a table and why it's designed the way it is. Why a dining room table is designed, and how you should sit at the table. You know, not having your chair far too back from the table, because you can't eat comfortably. And it's for your digestive system as well, that you sit at a table. And what I try to get them is to encourage them how to start conversations with the person to their left and to their right. And generally, and giving them ways, pointers, how to start a conversation. You know, what school do you go to? You know, just silly things. They were silly, but it develops from that. Yeah. And then at the end of that, we used to sit down and have a meal. And so we used to go through holding a knife and fork properly. Why you held it the way you do with the 3 fingers and a thumb? Because you wanted to put pressure. And things, if you didn't like something, little knacky things to do if you don't like that. I always used to tell children, never eat something you don't like. As long as you've tried it once, and if you don't like it after that, don't eat it. Nobody should force a child to eat food.
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, because my children are all very different, and 5 of them, and frequently starters are the amuse-bouche presents a problem with children. And I have to look. If something arrives that you don't know what it is, ask what it is. Then make your decision whether you're going to eat it or not. If it's something that you just don't like, everybody can accept if you say, I'm going to have bread instead. Okay, and I said, that's it. You don't have to get into I don't like that or any of this. You don't have to give any more of an explanation. I'll have bread instead. And that seems to work quite well.
That's important. What you just said there, you talk to your children. And that's the other thing. We have a habit as parents of talking down to our children instead of treating them as little people. They have their own minds. I think after 4 or 5, they do become much more assertive and they're much more vocal. But it is important, and that's the other thing that irritates me intensely, that especially with parents that take out their children and they just talk to the adults instead of involving in a conversation. If you have children, you have to involve them as well, because they get bored. And anybody who thinks a child is going to sit for 3 hours at a table in a restaurant is ludicrous. You should be expecting an hour and a half at max.
And a child is an eccentric customer and should be accepted as such.
Of course.
A good example was the Ritz Hotel, Pat Kenny's wedding, a small little gathering in a private dining room. My eldest daughter, probably about 6 years of age at the time. What is she going to eat? It's fine French dining. And I said, it's the Ritz. They'll deal with it. When the order came, she said she wanted a burger. Not an eyelid was batted. When all the cloches arrived back, cloche, off came the cloche, and one of the waiters said, Mademoiselle, le burger Ritz. Now, it wasn't on the menu, but it was created. And that's what it's all about. So the children must be helped through things and, if possible, steered in the right direction. But also they should
But
also be
it's an
given
education,
space.
isn't it? Don't you get think if you don't take your children out, how are they ever going to know?
No, never.
And I think, that's the other side of it. I am a firm believer children should be seen and heard, because that's how we all learn. For me, it was later in life when you learn all these wonderful things. It's great. It gives them a certain confidence as well.
Well, you've given us pleasure and entertainment this morning. I don't know what you're up to now. You go back to work, I presume, is it?
Well, I'm flying back to London. I'm going back to Kerry Airport today to fly out, so...
How extravagant.
Yes, very exciting.
Good morning, and thank you very much for being with us. Thank you. Good morning.
2FM. Hello?
Hello.
It's Mr. Gaffier's
Gaffier's
aunt
aunt
from
from
Ireland.
Ireland.
Well, yes.
Apologies, Mum. You will not believe what your nephew has done.
You
I found him stopping the delivery to Kenco. He didn't understand they use the same high-quality Arabica beans in their instant coffee as in their roast and ground to ensure a fantastic taste. If only your nephew shared your knowledge, Mum. And your timing.
Kenco. Coffee without compromise.
TV licence, Inspector.
This is our holiday home.
Still, you need a separate licence for the TV here.
We don't have a TV. We're very outdoorsy, hill walking, canoeing, sky gliding, surfboarding.
Wow, sounds great.
Oh yeah, good to get away, you know yourself.
And if it rains?
We pretty much stay in and watch TV.
Damn.
TV licence inspectors visit 18,000 homes, holiday homes and businesses every month. We've heard all the excuses and none of them work. Now you can pay online at tvlicence.ie, at the post office, or local 1890 228 528.
We return to a topic that I have to say seems to have exercised the thought processes of many of you listening yesterday, because we got a huge amount of mail, email, texts, phone calls about this. I'm talking about bullying in school and the responses of Irish school systems, or Irish school authorities, to these events of bullying. Most schools, and in particular I have to say probably the fee-paying schools, will taunt or will tout as part of their selling deal that they have a highly trained staff in relation to the bullying issue, and that they've been away on a course and that they know how to deal with it. And inevitably I think the experience of parents is completely to the contrary, and they will come back, in fact the polar opposite, and they will come back, and they were telling us yesterday pretty horrific stories of things that had happened to their children, with very ineffectual responses from schools. Now there are certain schools obviously who are very competent and who use not training that they have received from going on a special trip abroad to some organisation associated with the United Nations, but rather just good teaching instinct and good parenting instinct, and they manage to deal with it. At the heart of it all is the issue of whether or not our children are protected when they're in school, when they're moving to and from school, and also when they're in public places. And exactly what do you do with those who've decided to make it an entertainment or a pastime to carry out these attacks? Well, if they're in a school, I think we know what we need to do with them. They need to be sanctioned, but they also need to be treated as well. There's no point in just asking one, either the two boys to shake hands, or two, asking them to agree that they've been bold and they'll never do it again. You have to get them to understand that what they were doing was wrong, and in some cases, judging by some of the stories that we heard yesterday, very, very evil. What do you do, though, with boys or girls who are operating outside the school system, who are, for instance, gathering at train stations or dart stations or at the corner shop or outside Extravision or something of that nature, and decide to carry on their bullying activities? What can be done with them? Is it the parents? Is it the guards? Should you be teaching your children martial arts? How should you deal with it? Patricia, good morning. You were listening yesterday.
I was, Gerry, yeah.
And you were listening to Derek telling his story. Now, tell us about your son.
Well, this happened about 4 weeks ago. I have two boys in the same school, and one of them arrived home, and usually the other one toddles in about 5 minutes later. And
how old are they, by the way, Patricia?
Just 13 and 14.
Okay.
And the older lad would have been he's subject to a lot of bullying, so naturally 15 minutes went by and I start getting worried, and a half an hour went by, so I tried calling him. I couldn't get him. And then he was 45 minutes late, say, and a knock on the door came. And at this stage, I was really, really worried, and it was two security guards brought my child home.
Yeah.
He was on his way home from school, and he went to a train station, and was set upon about 40 or 50 lads.
By about 40 or 50?
Yeah, the station master rang me and he refused to let him go home. He rang security guards. He got wind of this, that there was going to be a fight organised, because it's all organised.
Yes, because that's what we were hearing yesterday,
Yeah.
using mobile phones to organise fights, and not just the way they used to organise fights when I was a kid, because boys have always organised fights, but these are fights that are being organised, not even grudge fights, they're exhibition fights, without the knowledge of one of the parties, or maybe even both of the parties, who are going to be forced into the fight.
Yeah, well...
So they were so terrified, the station master was so worried for the safety of your child, 40 or 50 fellas set upon him, that he calls the security guards.
Yeah, he tried to jump the rail. He says, but I'm here on my own. I've no security cameras where I am. He said, I feared for your son, and I rang...
Where did this happen?
Do I have to say?
Yeah.
Okay, in Malahide.
In Malahide, at Malahide Dart Station.
Well, the state, the only one there I know, and...
Yes.
He was afraid, so much afraid, that he rang the oncoming trains and asked them to slow on approach. Now imagine being told...
What was he afraid of? What did he think was...
That my son would be pushed out in front of a train.
Oh my God.
So every morning now my son has to get the train.
We need to get on to Barry Kenny and ask Barry what is the official opinion, and are they aware of this kind of thing? And
There's
where
no cameras there, Gerry.
there must be security cameras.
Not. The poor man told me. The man was in shock. You can imagine how I am now, every day having to send...
Where were these boys from?
From my area where I live, and from I don't know, there was that many of them, but it was organised and they had phones. I called the guards.
It was organised.
Yeah,
and is he absolutely certain that this was an organised event?
Well, the station master got wind of it that morning.
How did he get wind of it, I wonder?
He heard something going around. I don't know how the man heard.
Well, I suppose he has his ear to the ground.
Well, God love him, he's there on his own. I don't think that's fair. And the trains are crammed packed. Now, the school are saying it's disgraceful that there's no cameras there to catch these guys.
And do you think that these were boys from his own school?
Well, I know one of them. I have complained in primary school about him, and he's a little... Well, I have words I won't use on the radio about him. He harassed my other younger son so much last year that I have him at an orthodontist. He gave him... And this other little guy is a tough little lad, you know. Yeah. And he hasn't...
Have you complained about this boy?
Oh, yeah, I have done in the past, because my other little fella didn't want to go to school.
And what's been the reaction of the school to the complaint?
Well, the train station is ongoing. I have a meeting arranged. It hasn't been resolved yet, and they're going to do their utmost. Now, they were shocked when I told them.
I bet they were, yeah.
But at the same time, they're in uniform.
They could have had a death on their hands.
Yes, and I don't want it to be my son or...
A death, or more, there's something almost worse than death. And that is the possibility that your son could have been thrown in front of an oncoming train and had his legs chopped off or something, right?
Yeah, I know.
And he could have lived. Could you imagine that, then after that?
I know.
And can you imagine what that would have done to the driver of the train as well? Yeah. And to the poor man up then in the station master's box?
Yeah. See, there's a lot of people involved here.
There's an awful lot of people.
Run this train station, there should be cameras, there should be security with school lads, because we all know what school lads are up to. But at the same time, he texted me then again yesterday, will you pick me up from the train station? You know, he's getting more threats. And at the same time, he doesn't want to be a snitch, because you get an awful life and a couple of thumps for being a snitch. You're called a rat, you know. I don't know what the answer to this is, Gerry, but at the same time, parents have got to be made answerable as well. I mean, it went then onto the following train station, and the shop lady came out and she was terrified, and then they were waiting down the local area, because the two security guards that brought him home said that they seen the gang were waiting at the shop, and they were going to do their best, only for them security guards. I don't know what state my child was.
How old would these fellas be? What kind of...
13, 14. And their videos, the guards actually got to see one of them where they pulled the hood over him. Now, his clothes were shattered, they were torn to pieces.
So they did actually manage to physically attack him?
Yes, they did. The one guy, while they were video camera, trying to be the man, the business, you know. And so can you imagine how I feel every day?
Right, can you identify one?
Oh, I know one of them.
So you can identify one guy who's attacking him?
The guy who organised this.
You can identify the fellow who you think organised it?
Yeah.
Okay, and he's on the video?
Yeah, pulling his hood over him.
And does he do anything else to him?
Well, no, because it's short-lived. It's only a couple of seconds. But apparently loads of these went out, loads of them. And then he didn't want to go to school because he's going to be slagged because he didn't fight he was terrified. Well, you know.
Of course, he was terrified. What? They're not acceptable odds. 40-1.
Yeah, well.
Nobody wins that.
Yeah, well, I hate when my kids go to school in the morning. I'm a nervous wreck till they come home.
That's outrageous. It's outrageous.
And that's
and
my
the duty of care to your child is non-existent at the moment. And that's something that we were trying to get across yesterday. Trying to get across that this is not a privilege, it's a right. Your child has a basic... First of all, the state... let's start at the home. You have a duty of care that you must discharge to your child. Mm-hmm. The state has a duty of care. An Garda Síochána have a duty of care to your child. The school authorities have a duty of care. Your son as an invitee onto public or commercial properties, such as property that's associated with Irish Rail or the Lewis or the Dart, they have a duty of care to him.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't have been the first time, Gerry. In 6 months of his first year in the school, he had bones.
And this is a right, not a privilege. Start remembering that, folks.
Yeah, well.
So this fella, this ringleader, is he from your son's school?
He's from the area.
And you know who he is?
I do, yeah.
How old is he?
I'd say about 13.
What sort of fellow are we talking about?
You know, a tough nut, like going around.
And does he come from a middle-class family?
His parents seemed, if you've seen them, you'd say, God, they're nice people, but I have complained once before. I'm sure they didn't send him out to do it, but at the same time, he shouldn't be allowed. I'd kill my kids if they did that. Yeah. And I'd make them remember, because I say to my kids, like, you're being bullied, you remember what it's like, and never.
Ah, well, you never know what your children are going to do, good, bad, or indifferent, to be perfectly honest.
Well, you try to tell them, they've made you feel so bad, you don't ever do that to another child and make them feel so bad. You know, you try to teach them. Like, as I said, he has been hurt twice before in the school, like, ended up in Temple Street, broken bones. My lad would be subject to a lot of bullying.
This happened in the school, did it?
Yeah, yeah.
What did the school do about that?
Well, the first instance was on a private coach, and nothing was done. The bus driver basically laughed at me and read me a letter out aloud of, private confidential. The second time it happened over summer. Was
this going to and from school?
Yeah, private coach, a couple €100, and I took him off that. I ended up driving him to and from, which was...
So this was to get him to and from school, is that
safely,
the idea of this?
Safely.
Yeah.
So
he was beaten up on that?
Yeah.
By boys from his school?
Well, it was a mess that went wrong, and he ended up with an injury in Temple Street.
I'm going to bring another voice in here. Bill, good morning.
Good morning, Gerry. How are you?
Welcome. You're from New York.
I am, and my wife had rung in yesterday and kind of volunteered me to come on this. I was an assistant district attorney or a criminal prosecutor in New York City.
Okay.
And we had a specialist unit within the DA's office that dealt with what's essentially violent assaults and crimes committed against students by fellow students on school property. I think what you said earlier was absolutely right. The state owes a duty of care when you place your children in their custody to ensure that children who are either emotionally disturbed or, to be politically incorrect, otherwise brazen brats, don't assault and torture them on a daily basis. I think part of the problem that I've been hearing about these issues over here is that they use kind of very flowery euphemisms like bullying or antisocial behavior to describe what's essentially violent crime or vandalism or criminal behavior. And I guess the fundamental issue is, why do we treat the school grounds as a place where people are otherwise permitted to get away with things that they couldn't do on the street?
Bill, I'm so glad to hear this, because you know what? When you bring your child to school and they arrive on school property, they are not arriving into the land of legal immunity. In fact, the duty of care increases. As soon as they arrive onto school property, the duty of care is increased, more so than the journey between your home and the school. And that, we have a habit in this country. Somebody robs a car in Ireland, you're charged with driving without the permission of the owner, or maybe without a licence or insurance. If you rob somebody's car in the United States, you're charged with robbing something big and valuable. It's called grand auto theft. We really need to start getting real about rights. These are not privileges. This isn't kind of, if I've got time, I'm going to take care of your child.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. And I think when you're dealing with pre-teen age students, obviously you're not dealing with a situation where you'll be putting children in jail, but you will be removing them from an environment where they can hurt other children.
How did you deal with it in the state of New York?
Well, typically in New York City, if a crime occurred on school property, the school teachers and the principal, the school authorities are what we call mandated reporters. What that would mean is if they suspect that a child is being abused at home, being abused by some staff member, either physically or sexual, or is otherwise in danger, that they have an obligation, and they can be subjected to prosecution for ignoring their obligation to alert the appropriate authorities. Usually that would mean the school liaison person at the local police precinct, who would then notify the district attorney's office. And in the situation where a child was physically injured or required medical treatment, that offending child would be prosecuted in the family courts for an assault and would be dealt with by the law.
And when you say dealt with by the law, I presume, as you know, we have a juvenile liaison diversion scheme here, which works for some children, works very well. For others, it may not be as effective, but it is in place. It is reasonably well funded, and the training for the people, for the officers involved, is quite good. And as community policing goes, it's comparable to any other part of the European Union. Is that the kind of intervention you'd be talking about?
In the under 11 world, I would say yes. I mean, in New York State, there are certain violent felonies that an 11-year-old can be prosecuted as an adult for.
Mm-hmm. So, in other words, if you're going to set fire to somebody or stick a screwdriver into them, you can't really talk them down out of that. Sure, you can't.
No, absolutely not. And once you've reached that level, I think you've had. You know, however many social failures you can point to in that child's life from the day they were born until the day they stuck a screwdriver in one of their schoolmates is all very tragic. But at the moment when you have a child who's capable of sticking a screwdriver in another child, the duty of the government, the duty of the state at that stage is to get that child away from my kids and your kids. Whether that means a special school situation or that means juvenile detention or whatever that means, the primary mission has to be the learning environment for the kids that aren't stabbing each other with screwdrivers.
Okay, so it's a right, not a privilege, and that's backed up by the fact that they're mandatory reporters. Where is the discretion for the school then, Bill?
Well, I mean, you can get ridiculous results, and like any other system, it depends on the intelligence.
People who are working it, yeah.
You don't want to handle things in a courthouse that should be handled in the principal's office.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you don't want to handle things in the principal's office that ought to be handled by the police. And I think when you've reached a level where someone is, physically in danger, or someone is so emotionally distraught that they're incapable of learning because of these, bad apples in the school environment, then they have to be removed from the environment.
How would they have dealt with the situation that Patricia's just described, where boys congregate as a result of a pre-arranged battle plan with their mobile phones as the communication device, arrive at the one of the dart stations where this boy is going to go to school, and it's planned, it's premeditated. They're going to attack him. They're from the local area, some of them even from his own school. It's during the time when you're going to and from school. How would your guys have dealt with that?
Well, if that happened on, outside of a subway station, for example, that's no longer a school issue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the perpetrators would be arrested and charged, and depending on the severity of what they did and on their ages, you would decide whether they were going to go through the system as a juvenile or go through the system as an adult. I think some of these kids you said were 12 and 13.
Yeah.
Some of those, given the facts as you described them, could go through the system as adults in New York City, depending on the seriousness of the injury they caused.
Does your penal servitude and criminology history show you that this is working as a deterrent? Because immediately you'll have people ringing up and saying, "Oh, that won't work. That just gives them badges of honour. They'll have their pants draped down around their asses. Wait till you see."
Actually, I mean, the statistics kind of are self-evident if you look at. I can only speak to the example in New York City. If you look at a city of 8 million people with, I believe, 1 million or 800,000 school children, and you see the daily improvements in the quality of life in the schools and on the streets over the last 10 to 15 years, I don't think you can kind of throw up your hands and say, sure, well, nothing works, so we'll just do nothing.
Okay, right. Good words, Bill, and thank you very much for giving us a very clear indication of what another jurisdiction would do in these circumstances. Thanks
for taking my call. It's the best show in Ireland.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
Bye.
Okay, right, Patricia, there's how they do it in New York City. What does that sound like to you?
Yeah, it sounds very good. But then again, sometimes the principal's hands are tired because he are tied. He knows.
But imagine though if the principal was, as Bill describes, a mandatory reporter. Imagine if the principal had no other route to take if there was a serious physical attack on your child than to give the information to a juvenile liaison officer within An Garda Síochána who would have to then investigate it as a crime.
That would be a good idea. I mean, I have the guards involved in it.
Makes perfect sense to me, doesn't it?
Great, absolutely. Well, I have the guards involved in it, so it's not resolved yet, so I have to just wait and see.
Okay, right. Well, you're going down to the school today, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Okay, will you get back to us and tell us how you get on?
I will indeed, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Take care.
You
bye
too, bye-bye.
90 to 92. Gerry Ryan on 2FM.
James, good morning.
Morning, Gerry. How are you?
I'm very well. We missed out not having you along for the ride, but better late than never. James is a trucker, and you've been, I suppose, involved in your own transformation over the last couple of weeks. Let's hear it.
Yeah, my regular diet used to be a nice breakfast roll, 3 sausages, 2 rashers, 2 eggs, all rolled up nice and tight, and washed down with 3 2-litre bottles of Diet Coke.
Right, okay, that'll get you going for the day.
Yeah, and on top of that, then my sandwiches for the day as well, and top of bars of chocolate and crisps, and that has been my diet. And then I've been watching Operation Transformation, Donald and Eamon, and one of them I think gave up the cigarettes, and the other was the trucker with his breakfast roll.
That's right, Donald's the trucker. Yeah.
Donald was a trucker, and
he had the cab. Remember, James, Donald, when we first came to meet him at the beginning of Transformation, Donald's truck cab was literally a sweet shop. It was full of candy bars, chocolate bars, fudge packs, you name it, and bottles of fizzy drinks.
That's my brother. That's pretty much my brother. That's pretty much what my truck was like, and empty crisp packets and
of course buckets of fags as well.
Oh yeah, I was smoking over 240 cigarettes, 200 a week.
200 cigarettes.
40 cigarettes.
40 plus a day is going to put you into a very dangerous zone.
Yes, and running after my kids was starting to get a bit of a problem, and they were giving me a bit of grief. And just listening to it, I decided, right, I'm going to give up the cigarettes. And last Friday, I stopped. I said, that's it, I'm not smoking anymore.
Good man, well done.
On Friday,
what are you using, by the way, James? Are you using?
I'm using Nicorette Micro Tab. Micro Tab.
And has that worked for you, yeah?
Yeah, 2
Good.
milligrams.
Excellent.
They're great. And they're not as expensive as what my cigarettes would cost me, so I'm saving money every which way I go. Okay,
so you've given up the cigarettes. What about the breakfast roll?
The breakfast roll is gone. My Coke is down to approximately 1.25 litres of Coke now a day as opposed to 6 litres.
Okay, that's going in the right direction, isn't it?
And now in my cab beside me as I look, I've got mandarin oranges and some apples.
As opposed to bars of chocolate.
Chocolate and crisps.
Yeah, okay, well, that's a huge change, isn't it?
It is, and so far I can notice I don't have a cough now in the morning since I've got up. My teeth are cleaner, my breath is fresher.
Do you feel better? Because sometimes there's a sort of period where you actually feel worse.
I'm sort of, I do have the shakes, and it isn't easy, but long-term benefits is got to outweigh it. I want to leave the Grim Reaper alone for another while.
Absolutely. Let's not wake him up too early. Isn't that the way to look at this?
Indeed.
Now, James, up till this moment, because now the entire country knows that you are, in fact, an Operation Transformation leader in your own right. But up until this moment, nobody knew what you were doing, except your wife.
Yes, and my kids.
And what was it that triggered off your desire to follow the transformation leaders?
Well, I saw them doing it, and I saw a program there on RTE1, I think it was just after Operation Transformation, or RTE2, on smoking, and all the tar and all the guns and everything that was coming out from the cigarettes that one would take in a day's smoking of cigarettes. and I just said I had to do something, and a slight pain in my chest and my arms and that, just getting a bit worried, and I said I had to do something, and seeing Donald the trucker managing it, and I said if he can do it, so can I.
Absolutely, you better believe it. Well, you know something? You are inspirational, and you're exactly the kind of person that we hoped we would create out of this. Sometimes with television and radio programmes, you create monsters. I think that you're
definitely a monster at the moment behind the wheel.
You're definitely not a monster. You're the kind of person that we hoped we would create. You're still a work in progress, but without doubt, you have done exactly what it says on the tin. You went to the website, you saw your own situation, you were able to compare yourself to one of our leaders, and then you took matters in hand. You gave up the cigarettes. He was 40 fags a day. At 16 and a half stone, right?
Yep.
You are in danger there. What's your waist, by the way?
My waist is 38.
38, another 2 inches, and you'd be a cert for cardiac problems, okay? So you've got to come down from that. He's given up the breakfast rolls. He started eating fruit. He's cut back from 6 litres of Coke today to 1.25 litres. Already the cough is gone, the teeth are white and the breath is fresher, and you are on the road to becoming a healthy human being. We couldn't ask for anything more.
Thanks to you and all the guys, Gerry.
Thanks, buddy.
Talk to you.
Take care.
Big tempo. Bye.
This is the Gerry Ryan Show on 2FM. Call 08457 585 285 from Northern Ireland.
Now, as mentioned earlier when we were going through the papers, probably the most extraordinary story of the week so far, the front page of today's Daily Star features the amazing image of Rob McNichol, whose sight has been restored after doctors inserted his son's tooth into his eye. Rob was blinded in an industrial explosion 2 years ago, but he can now see again thanks to revolutionary optical surgery performed in the United Kingdom, where his ruined cornea was replaced with a lens fitted inside a tooth donated by his 23-year-old son. Rob McNichol, good morning.
How are you, Gerry?
Well, what an amazing photograph, first of all.
Well,
now tell us what happened to you.
Well, I was melting down aluminium, and just as one of the ingots was full, which was liquid, it was liquidized, and just, I don't know why, I never will know, but it was just a big explosion, and it splattered everywhere, and I got splattered with it, I was very close to it when it happened. I didn't expect the aluminium to have reached that temperature at that stage, and that's why I wasn't wearing any protective glasses. It was just like a spare of the moment thing. And I opened this thing up, and I wasn't expecting the aluminium to run out as it did, and of course, it was a split second. I sort of hadn't really time to turn around and put the protective glasses on and that sort of thing, and I was just switching it off, and it just went with a big bang.
And covered you, obviously, in molten aluminium.
Yeah.
And obviously your eyes took part of the impact as well.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
Good God, that must have been absolutely horrific.
Well,
what was the pain like?
Well, adrenaline kicks in, at first, but when the adrenaline wears off, then that's when you really feel it,
Did you lose all of your sight?
Every bit, yeah. I was in total darkness.
Good God. And I would presume when that happens, the general opinion was that, well, that's it, buddy. You've had it. You're not going to see again.
Yeah. I mean, that was my obvious thought, that...
Now, you were given initial treatment at Sligo General. You were then transferred to Galway. Doctors operated on your eyes 9 separate times.
Yeah.
And I would imagine after the final operation, you were beginning to wonder where this was all going. Nowhere, says you.
Well, they're absolutely brilliant in Galway.
So I gather.
The surgeons, the nurses, the whole lot, they were really, really good. And everything was done that was possible, to try and save my eyes, but, they were just so badly burnt,
At that stage, Rob, were you trying to resign yourself to the fact that you were never going to see again?
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, I knew the extent of the injury. I knew that you know, that was going to be my future. That, at least that's what I thought, you know, that it was going to be my future, that I was going to be blind for the rest of my life, you know.
Now, the doctor suggested that you might even try stem cells specialists in the United Kingdom. That didn't work, though.
No, it didn't work.
No joy there either.
No.
Then you're told about this new surgery that a fella by the name of Christopher Lew performs at the Sussex Eye Hospital in Brighton. Now, this procedure is called OOKP.
Yeah.
I've never heard of it. I presume you didn't either, but you know what? There are no atheists in a foxhole. I presume you went there.
Yeah, I did, yeah. I went down to see Mr. Lew. He done all the tests and everything else, and my right eye, which was the worst, you know, that had just been skin grafted over because, like, my eyelids was welded to my eyeballs, so they had to...
your eyelids were welded to your eyeballs?
Yeah, they had to take my eyelids away, and, you know, my eyes were full of bits of aluminium, and they took my eyelids away and just skin grafted over that eye, and that stayed like that all the time. They operated on my left eye. And I just had my right eye skin grafted over, and Mr. Lew decided to open the right eye up and work on that one.
Now, what is OOKP?
It involves taking skin from inside your mouth and wrapping it round, like skin grafting the eyeball itself.
Yeah.
That's the first stage. Then there's a tooth extracted. It's machined and drilled, and there's a lens put inside the hole that they drill through the tooth.
And where do they get the tooth from?
Well, they always say, like, it's better to get a younger tooth, you know.
Yeah.
Than, you know, because if that tooth breaks when it's being drilled or machined, then they have to go through the whole procedure again. And at this stage, like, you know, you're in the operating theatre, and it does take 10 hours, this first part of the operation.
So you got a tooth from, was it one of
My
your
son.
nephews or your
No,
son?
my son, yeah.
Fair
Yeah.
play to him. He gave you his canine.
He did, yeah.
Why a tooth, I wonder?
Well, because, you know, your eye's like a very sensitive muscle, and it can rejects a lot of things, and you know, a man-made product probably would be rejected by your eye.
And hence the fact that you were using a relative's
Yeah.
Tissue or tooth so that you'll cut down the chances of rejection.
Correct, yeah.
And they put a little lens inside the tooth.
Yeah.
That's absolutely amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
And is
It's
it
amazing stuff.
electronic or is it biological?
It's biological.
Really?
Yeah.
So they stick the tooth into your eye.
Yeah.
It beggars belief. You know, if I didn't know this was true, I'd say you were taking the piss out of me.
Well, everybody else asked me what I've been drinking when I told them, you know.
And when they put it in, what was the effect when you opened your tooth for the first time?
Well, you know, it was amazing, you know, like, it might sound strange, but it was like a bit of a frightening experience, to be honest with you, you know, being from total darkness for 2 years, and then to open my eye and start seeing around me, like, I mean, it was blurred vision at first, but it was an amazing experience.
Can you see properly?
I can watch television.
Yeah.
I can walk down the town without the aid of a cane. I can see good-looking girls.
That's good, isn't it?
Yeah, brilliant.
And when you say you can see, I mean, does it look like a fisheye lens, or does it? You know the way the Daleks. You know when you go inside the Dalek and you can see, they can see where they're going, all right, but it's a bit different from what you and I see. Well, from I certainly see. What's your vision actually like?
Well, my vision's, I don't know how to put it in percentage-wise, but like it's pretty good, you know.
Yeah.
And
God, that truly is miraculous, isn't it?
I mean, I believe my eye looks very, you know, like Terminator-wise, and I like the description that you give me, all right.
Oh, that's right. Bill the Butcher in Gangs of New York. There's a great close-up of Daniel Day-Lewis, and you'll see he's lost one of his eyes, and he's replaced it with a false eye, and it's got a tattoo of the Union flag on it. Fairly threatening looking, and yours is not far behind.
No, well, It's
very impressive.
Basically, it doesn't matter, that I don't really care what it looks like,
I've got a picture. There's a picture of you, which I presume you'll be able to look at today because of your iTunes.
Yeah.
On the front page of the Star.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
Actually, you do look like Terminator. You'll be back.
I'll be back. Well, I did come back, didn't I?
Well, you did come back, didn't you? Well, do you know what? Isn't it a fantastic achievement?
It is, yeah.
What they
it's
can
great,
do.
like medical science and everything else,
Well, here's to you, Mr. Lou.
Yeah, he is to you, Mr. Lewis, right? Yeah.
Bit of an old genius. All right. Well done, Rob McNichol.
Well, nice talking to you, Gerry.
God bless you, sir.
Yeah, and yourself.
There you go.
Yeah, bye now.
That's the man who has had his eyesight restored. His eyesight restored. I promise I have not been drinking. His eyesight has been restored using his son's canine tooth, which was drilled and fitted with a little lens. It's not electronic. They put it into his eye. It is able to focus and project back onto the retinas, I think how it works, isn't it? And there the images are picked up in the normal fashion, and it works. It's functioning. As he said himself, he can see pretty girls again. And that's not bad.